thank you for tuning into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the Dolphins making victory over the Rams and whether or not this can lead to a potential run into the playoffs. We'll talk about the 49ers nail-biting victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We'll discuss the Cleveland Cavaliers' historic 12-0 start to their season. We'll discuss the Chicago Bears firing offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you my reaction to Brian Flores being on a podcast seeking an opportunity to once again be an NFL head coach. And we'll discuss if that's realistic with all the surrounding things going on around Brian Flores. Before we start off, if you have a good question during the show, we want to hear it. Your input is a big part of what makes you so successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, please don't hesitate to drop it in the show. Please don't hesitate to drop it in chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure that your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your super chat gets put on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We really rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the GSMCpodcast.net to tip, donate, or leave a comment or question there. We really couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We really couldn't do what we're doing without y'all. But we do have to start off with yesterday's Monday Night Football game. Slight technical difficulties. We couldn't touch it during the game, during the show yesterday because of how late the game ended. It was just a little bit quick turnaround to the show, so I wanted to give myself about 24 hours to digest more of the game, to do a little bit more analyzing. And it was a great defensive display from the Miami Dolphins, and a defense that last year I thought they struggled in moments. This season they've had some good games defensively against the Patriots, which is not that impressive, but they haven't been that great this season as well. They've been carved up by Arizona, Buffalo twice, Tennessee. Tennessee was able to run the ball against them, have an efficient day against their against that defense. But this game, this Dolphins defense, they came to play, and they really limited what the Rams were able to do offensively. Keep in mind, yes, the Rams entered this game on 4-4, but they were coming on a three game stretch in which they beat the Raiders, they beat the Vikings, who are 5-1, high flying at that point. They're still high flying now, and then they beat and then the Rams also beat the Seahawks in the fashion that they did with that overtime drive. But in this game, they struggled to get any sort of offense going. Matt Stafford, 32 of 46, 293, and an interception. The run game as well was pretty limited. I thought Puka Nacua, he had 9 receptions for 98 yards. Cooper Kupp had 7 receptions for 80 yards, but there was no gashers. There was no, it was a quiet 98 yards. It was a quiet 80 yards from Cooper Kupp. They didn't really, Miami didn't struggle against them. I thought Miami, the way that they defended the run game as well, they held the Rams to 70 rushing yards throughout the entire game. That is very, very good. That is winning football. That is winning rushing defense. 70 yards total, 15 carries, and 62 yards for Kyren Williams. Average only about 4 yards a carry, 4.1 yards a carry. I was very, very impressed. I was very, very impressed by the Dolphins defense, and Anthony Walker. He was able to get a big turnover in there. No, I was thoroughly impressed with the Dolphins defense. I didn't think they had this in him. I didn't think they had this in them with this Rams team, and how high flying of an offense they could be with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford all in there with that running game. I didn't think they could be suppressed to this manner. And I have to say, Miami Dolphins in the last, couple of years or so, the big, you know, the big criticism of them is, they beat up on all the garbage teams. And when it comes to any decent team that they play, they eventually lose. I'm looking at this Rams game. This is the Rams team that entered this game 4-4, but they were on a 3-game winning streak entering this game. I would classify this as a good Rams team. And if you look at it, and as crazy as it sounds, if you look at Miami Dolphins' body of work over the past few years now, this is probably their most impressive win since they beat Baltimore, not last season, but the season before, where they beat them very early on in the season. This is probably their most impressive win since then. Yes, they had they had that 70-point game against the Denver Broncos last season, but every team that they beat was bad football teams. Was poor football teams last year. Year before that, similar. Besides that Ravens victory early on that season, that was the coming out party for Tua Tagovailoa. I believe he had 6 touchdowns in that game, threw for 470 yards. Tyreek Hill had, I think, 190 yards with 2 touchdowns. And that one back then. This, in my opinion, has been their most impressive win up to that point. In that game, I'm gonna pull it up. Actually, I have the records here. That game was. When was that game? That game was not the 2022-23 season. Okay, so, that's a while, but that's a while back, and that's in September. In my opinion, this victory is their most impressive victory going back till September 18, 2022. And it makes me wonder, now the Miami Dolphins, they're 2-6 or 3-6. They had Tua back. They got Tua back. The last 2 games that they lost with Tua have been in heartbreaking fashions. Both times it's been walk-off field. Well, it was a walk-off field goal by Arizona, and then a late, I believe it was a 58 or 59-yard kick, by what's the Bills' kicks by Tyler Bass, or 61-yard kick, I believe it was, to give them the lead. It gave Miami back the ball with seconds left. Had to do some sort of lateral attempt to basically almost a walk-off kick as well. So that's us. The games since Tua has been back has been tight. And early on this season, when Tua was out, they just couldn't move the ball because Tua was very, very important to this Miami Dolphins team. This team goes as Tua goes. And the fact that Tua is someone who can be regularly accurate, he can push the ball down the field, he can take advantage of the speed and agility of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill and hit them on stride just because he has the accuracy to do so. And, you didn't get that when you had Tyler Huntley and you had Skylar Johnson, I believe that was his name, or something, Skylar Thomas, something like that. You didn't get that from the quarterback play. Then now look, Miami, they're 3-6. The thing that gives you positivity about Miami is they've shown in the past when Tua's in there, they've been able to reel off 7, 8, 9 straight wins. They've been able to do that. But they're 3-6. There's not that much breathing room, and you have so you have Raiders, Patriots coming up in the next 2. That's relatively as easy as it gets in the National Football League. So that's the good side to it. Right now you're 3-6. You win those 2 games, you get 5-6. For me, the key is that November 28th game when they take on Green Bay at Green Bay Lambeau Field. I believe that's a Sunday night game. I believe that is. That's the key. And for me, it's the same with Cincinnati. You want to get to 6-6 with 5 games left. When you already have 6 losses, You take it one step at a time. You want to get to 6-6. So let's assume, because they'll, Raiders, Patriots must win. They need to win that Packers game. They win that Packers game, they get themselves to 6-6. Then it's a totally different ball game. Now you're 500 through 12 games. You have everything to look forward to. We don't know for sure if they'll be controlling their destiny at that point. It depends on how other teams go, but they put themselves in a position that they at least have a chance, a really or a decent chance, much better chance than they had when they started, before this Monday night game when they were sitting on 2-6. So if they can beat that Green Bay team, then who knows, because then that's another win against a big-time team, in my opinion. Doing it at Lambeau Field as well against Jordan Love, that's a sort of win that can build momentum and that could really, take this push to another level. But, the Dolphins, they do have some difficult games in there. They do play the Packers and they play the 49ers. Those are two difficult teams. The other three games, they play the Jets twice, which are they're gonna be gone by then. They play the Jets twice, they play Cleveland, they play Patriots, they play Raiders. That is winnable ball games. I'd say the only difficult games in there is the Packers and the Niners. They do play the Houston Texans, but I don't believe that Texans team is as good as what we expected of them entering the season. I think Stroud has taken a little bit of a step back. I think offensively, they've been struggling in They've struggled in periods. I think they've been carried by their defense. Not carried, but heavily helped by their defense. And they have vulnerabilities in that Texans team. But that'll still be a difficult game. But I think the games that you look at and you're actually proper nervous about if you're a Dolphins fan is that Dolphins game, is that 49ers game. But Miami, I definitely think that they're in it because they've shown under Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel, they can reel off a few wins here and there. They can make that late season push into the playoffs. And the fact that they won't beat the Rams, I think it's good signs because they're showing that they're able to beat a decent team for once. Against Arizona, they were very unfortunate in Tua's game first back to not win that game. Against Buffalo, very, very unfortunate to not win that game as well. Going up to Buffalo, Tua played one heck of a game. The team as a whole, they played good. What's the word? Good. Complimentary. That's what it was. Good complimentary football in that Buffalo Bills game, but they had that third quarter where they got outscored 14-3. They couldn't stop the bleeding enough. Then they needed to make a comeback in the fourth, which they did to their credit, but it just wasn't enough at the end. I think Dolphins are still a good team. I think they just, they're 3-6 solely because, when you lose to it for that long of a stretch, you don't have a quarterback. You're gonna struggle to win games. That's just, they lost to the Indianapolis Colts that only scored 16 points. Games like that, that Tennessee game, you really think they're losing to the Tennessee Titans if they have two? That Seattle Seahawks game, they only managed 3 points in that one. So yeah, I think Miami can make that late run. It really depends on how much losses can get them in the AFC because I think Cincinnati is still going to be battling for that final spot. In the Los Angeles Chargers, they've been looking good at 6-3. I think Denver Broncos, I think this might be a little season too early, and I think they will start moving away. They'll start moving away from the pack in a negative way. But Cincinnati, Chargers, Dolphins, they're all in that battle for that 7th spot. I thought Indianapolis could get themselves into there with the quarterback change, but it's, now it's 2 straight losses with Joe Flacco. They're still technically not out of it. They're sitting 4-6, which is not a horrible position to be in, but I don't know. I really think that battle for that 7th seed will be between Cincinnati, Chargers, and Miami, and yeah, I'm looking all forward to it. I know Miami, they didn't play any of those two teams, and they don't play the Chargers or Cincinnati this season. So you know, Miami can't really get a tiebreaker over any of those. I don't. And then the Chargers play the Bengals actually this week. So that'll be interesting because that'll be a big game with tiebreakers going forward. If those two teams are the two teams that end up battling for that 17th, big game for both opposition. They're much bigger game honestly for Cincinnati. But yeah, I think that AFC 7th seed race will be very interesting. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will react to the 49ers' nail-biting victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we discussed the Dolphins making if they can make a late playoff run after their win over the Rams. We move on to discuss the 49ers nail-biting victory over the Buccaneers. So I'm just going to come out and be clean about this. This is my first few days on the GSMT Dead Ball Sports Podcast. I am a 49ers fan, so allow me to qualify or disqualify my opinion, but I'm a San Francisco 49er fan, diehard San Francisco 49er fan, and I will not apologize about that. I love my team, but I pride myself in being able to be objective regarding the team in terms of not being afraid to, criticize the team when necessary, be completely objective regarding that manner. And look, we go back to this game. Obviously this is a nail-biting game by the San Francisco 49ers. Some big moments in this one. Some really good quarterback play on both sides. In my opinion, a lot of penalties, a lot of special teams woes. This, Baker Mayfield wrestling off former defensive player of the years to get a throw off on fourth down. It was just crazy. Everything happened in this one, and I have to say, these are the kind of games that take years off your life as a fan. Watching that game, especially how it finished late. It was really an emotional game. You had missed kicks. You had guys getting shot 10 weeks ago, making 46-yard touchdowns. It was obviously I'm speaking about Ricky Pearsall, who he opened up the scoring actually in this game with that 46-yard touchdown from Brock Purdy with the run after the catch. It's unbelievable to think that 10 weeks ago he was shot, and now he's getting, his first touchdown in the NFL, catching a 46-yard ball. It's just unbelievable. And that gave the Niners 7-0 lead. And look, throughout that first half, 49ers completely and utterly dominated the football game, as they've dominated plenty of teams this season. But they have not been able to take the game over in those first halves. they have not been able to take over the games in terms of put them away when they've dominated games like they have in the past. Problem in this time around, 49ers, they got into the red zone. So they scored that touchdown, right? They got into the red zone 2 more times. They only ended up with a total of 3 points. One was a missed field goal from Jake Moody. The other one was a 28-yard field goal. So you get in the red zone, you're in the, you score a touchdown. You get in the red zone 2 other times, but only manage 3 points. Well, suddenly you only have 10 points in the half in a game that you're dominated, and you're only up 7 points at halftime. So then it took a quick, and then the third quarter, we knew this Buccaneers defense, this Buccaneers offense with Baker Mayfield have been struggling in this game, and it's expected. You don't have Chris Godwin, you don't have Mike Evans, you lose your top 2 receivers. It's difficult. They also, another big injury that they suffered in this one as well is Tristan Wirfs. They lost him some period around the second quarter, I want to say. He's protecting Baker Mayfield's blind side. That left tackle, he ended up being diagnosed with the MCL sprain, which is good news because obviously, he could always be, that dreaded ACL. But he was out for that game, and he's going up against, Nick Bosa. He's going up against Leonard Floyd, 2 very, very talented defensive ends. 49ers tend to mix and match sometimes. So it's, you're very, very short-handed offensively, and you've only managed 3 points through the first half. The Buccaneers, they needed some sort of spark to get that offense going. That spark came from the worst special teams in the NFL, striking again the San Francisco 49ers. Their special teams is completely dreadful, and I'm talking about in all facets of the game. They're dreadful. I'm going to discuss Jake Moody and his 3 missed field goals. He ended up eventually drilling the game winner. But the 49ers special teams is terrible. It's horrendous. It's abysmal. It's disgraceful, quite honestly. A mistake there with Cowing fumbling it, I believe, but he was pushed in. Buccaneers gunner pushed one of the 49ers blockers into him, leads to a muff. Buccaneers get it immediately in the red zone. Rashad White eventually catches a 9-yard pass from Baker Mayfield. Suddenly, despite the entire game being dominated by the 49ers, but because of miscues and special teams and not being able to finish in the red zone, it's 10-10 at the, with about 12 minutes left in the third quarter, and the Buccaneers are already back into the game despite being dominated the entire first half. And it's just so frustrating because that's been the story of the 49ers this season. They've had so many special teams woes, and they don't finish in the red zone, and despite dominating the games in terms of average yards per play, in terms of just watching the game generally, seeing the team that moves the football more, the team that can generate more offense, despite all that, the 49ers are still, they're letting these teams linger, and these teams are making them pay at the end because the 49ers defense is not what it was and is not as elite as it was last year. It's a defense in transition now with a new, or not even last year, previous years, because last year was pretty shaky as well. But it's a defense that is going to be in a little bit of a transition now, being managed by a defensive coordinator, and they're going to need these, next couple of games to, it should be the first 8 games, but they're going to need just a little bit more time to, to mold. And I think they have been improving defensively. Yes, you're going up against a Buccaneers team with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin missing. But besides that special teams blunder that gave the Buccaneers automatic red zone opportunity, the Buccaneers team only managed 13 points, and the 49ers defense did come up with that clutch stop on the goal to go situation at the end of the game to force Buccaneers to kick it to tie instead of them taking the lead, which it would have been it would have been horrible. It would have led to a 49ers loss. So there's you're looking at it, and well, let me go back though. So yeah, they got that touchdown 10-10, and then it was a little bit going back and forth. Moody hit a field goal. Buccaneers had their first only real drive of the game where they were able to get a touchdown all the way down the field. It ended up with the Bucky Irving 12-yard run to give the Buccaneers the 17-13 lead at the top of the fourth. very clutch drive from Brock Purdy and the 49ers to respond with a touchdown drive. Amazing toe drag catch by George Kittle to lead to that touchdown. The 49ers finally got it to, finally got a red zone opportunity in, and then that gave the Niners the lead. And then a little bit back and forth, some punts back and forth. Buccaneers get the ball with about 3 minutes or so left after a third missed kick by Jake Moody, which also was another reason that kept the Buccaneers into this game. They gave the Buccaneers into the game. And then the craziest thing I've ever seen, I think the Niners had about 40 yards of penalty yards. It was a couple roughing the passer, a face mask, a couple illegal hands to the face. And suddenly the Buccaneers were 4th and 8 on their own 40 or something, and Nick Bosa is in a perfect position to, sack Baker Mayfield, finish the game, but Baker Mayfield is able to get the ball off to Rachaad White, 10-yard catch, first down out of midfield. Then all the penalties spring, and suddenly the Buccaneers are in a first-and-goal situation with a little bit more than, I believe it was like a minute 3 or a minute 4 left, and you're thinking as a Niner fan, how the hell, what is going on? How the hell am I watching what I'm watching? The 49ers defense was, and I'll give them credit, despite all the penalties and that blunder on 4th down that I question Nick Bosa's effort about, but that's a whole, that can be a whole different segment. Despite the blunders and all that, 1st and goal, a minute and 2 or 3 left, the Niners defense was able to keep them out of the end zone, make a clutch stop, forced them to kick to tie the game instead of taking the lead, and that gave Brock Purdy an opportunity to lead a game-winning drive and cap off an excellent game from him with 25-36, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns. Christian McCaffrey was there, but not the greatest game from him. Is expected his first game back. He only averaged around 3 yards a carry. Juwan Jennings had a really good game. Ricky Pearsall made a clutch catch as well in that game-winning drive. He had 4 catches for 73 yards, averaged 18 yards a catch, and also had that touchdown. Look, here's my positives and negatives from this game if you're a 49er fan. Positive, you have a winning record for the first time since week 1. Since week 1, that week 1 win over the Jets, when they blew out the Jets on Monday night, they finished 1-0. They have not had a winning record this season up to that point. So that's great. That's great. You finally have a winning record. It took you 9 weeks, or 10 weeks. I believe this was actually week 10. So that's great. Brock Purdy, he looked elite. And he doesn't have that superstar, super team of weapons around him. He has Deebo Samuel that looks like he's a little bit out of it. I'm not going to lie. It looks like he's not at his top level that he was once at. A McCaffrey who's nowhere near healthy. No Brandon Ayuk. His number 1 receiver is Juwan Jennings, who's really, really good, but this is definitely not a super team of weapons. And he's playing elite football. He's staying in the pocket and he's making throws despite missed assignments in terms of blocking, free runners coming to his face. He has the poise and composure to he's making plays out of the pocket as he did on that touchdown as well. He's making plays out of schedule. He's making great plays with pressure in his face. He's had an unbelievable season. He's had a few dark moments here and there. That Chiefs game was really bad, but overall he's had a really good season, and he's playing tremendous football. That's a great positive. Juwan Jennings is a great positive. Ricky Pearsall is a great positive. He is a first round pick, so there is some expectations with him. He got shot 10 weeks ago, and he's out here getting 70 yards in his third game, scoring a big touchdown. I think he's somebody that can be a big player for the 49ers going forward. He definitely has there's some potential to work with. Christian McCaffrey, he's only kind of getting more and more, adjusted. But there is some negatives. They can't stop kicking, shooting themselves in the foot with special teams errors, with late game collapses. They need to figure that out. Because they're playing a lot of bad football, and their talent has been bailing them out in a tremendous fashion. Show break here coming up, though. When we come back, we will discuss the Cleveland Cavaliers' historic 12-0 start to their season.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed the 49ers' nail-biting victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We move on to discuss the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have started 12-0. They're still undefeated. They got a victory this past Monday with a 119-113 win over the Chicago Bulls at the United Center. And they find themselves now at 12-0. This is just the 8th time in league history that a team has started a season 12-0. This is the first time since 2000 in the 2015-16 season where the Dub Warriors started off. I think they broke the record for consecutive games. I forgot exactly what number it was. I think it was around 31 or something ridiculous. And what's the ridiculous stat to this is they're 12-0. Of the 7 previous teams to finish 12-0, to start off 12-0, 5 of them went on to reach the NBA Finals that season, and 2 of those teams won an NBA championship. It's been a ridiculously impressive start, and it's no. It's the Warriors. The Warriors, they won their first 24 games of the regular season. That's the record, not 31. Yeah, it was 24. And by the way, what's also a crazy stat? LeBron James, arguably the greatest player in NBA history, he never managed to start off like that with the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it just puts into perspective how historic the start has and how unexpected, in my opinion. Look, the Cleveland Cavaliers last season, they finished around, I believe it was 4th seed, but they were in a tight 4th seed. They were in a tight place with the Celtics. With the Bucks, the Magic, the Pacers, the Sixers, the Heat. I think they were all separated by around 2 games or so, and they finished 4th place, and they took on the Orlando Magic. And they took on the Orlando Magic, and it took a Game 7 to get that victory. A second half comeback in that game. Donovan Mitchell ended up taking over that Game 7, and it got the Cavaliers to reach the Eastern Conference semifinals, in which they eventually went down to the Boston Celtics. They lost to the eventual finals winners, but it was a Cleveland Cavaliers team that we didn't, I didn't see this sort of rise coming. But they fired JB Pickerstaff. They brought in Kenny Atkinson. Evan Mobley finally started developing a consistent offensive game. He's averaging 18 points this season, which is up from his regular career average of 16 points a game. He's up a few points in terms of points per game. His efficiency is, in terms of his 3-point percentage, 33%. That's 6% better than his career average. That will work. That is progression. 33% obviously is not great, but you're at least a threat. You're at least a threat. And I think it's opened it up for this Cleveland Cavaliers team. Obviously, Kenny Atkinson, we know what he did going back to his Brooklyn days, leading that team. They've made the playoffs with D'Angelo Russell at the wheel. Do you remember that team with D'Angelo Russell, Jared Dudley, Joe. He's Joe Harris. That's what it was. Joe Harris, that Brooklyn Nets team. I think they lost to the 76ers with the Ben Simmons, Jared Dudley drama, if you remember that series. Kenny Atkinson is a proven player development coach and has been able to get the best out of a young group of guys. He's been able to mold them into a young group of guys, into a serious team. He's done it in the past, and I think he's doing it right now with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he's a brilliant manager. He eventually went on. He got fired by the Brooklyn Nets when KD and Kyrie came in, because they didn't look at him they looked at him as a developmental coach rather than a coach that can take a team to the next level in terms of a championship. But I thought it was a little bit unfair how he was treated at Brooklyn, because he deserved that opportunity to prove that he could. When he got fired, he didn't. That was the year that KD didn't play, because KD came off an Achilles injury, and Kyrie, he was in and out, and it was just like Brooklyn Nets, they were a dysfunctional organization. Not saying Cleveland is that much better, but Cleveland bring in Kenny Atkinson now, and I think he's going to get his opportunity now to make that next push from just a team that has a young core, develop them into a team that can make the playoffs, into potentially competing for a championship. Because look, a 12-0 start, it's not easy to come by. It is ridiculously impressive, and they've gotten some good wins too. They beat a really good Golden State team, a really hot Golden State team to start off the season. They completely, utterly destroyed them. They beat the Lakers. They beat the Bucks twice, which we know the Bucks have not had a great start so far to their season. But yeah, we'll see. I think the Cavaliers team is a team to. If you're a Cleveland Cavalier fan, you have to be excited about. You have to be excited about what you're getting out of Evan Mobley, what you're getting obviously out of Donovan Mitchell, who, the way he's been playing, how good the Cavaliers been. He's been solid as well. He's averaging 24 points a game. His 3-ball percentage has been really, really good. He is hitting his shots. He's shooting 41% from this season, and he's a player. He's a shot chucker. He'll put up 20-25 shots a game. He will put up a lot of field goals. He put up 16 threes in the Bulls game that they won. He was 7 of 16. That will work. His shooting over his career wise has been about 37%. This season 41. He's playing really good complementary basketball, and in certain games he's had big games, like the 36-point game he had over the Chicago Bulls. So I look for him to be in that MVP race when it comes down to the wire, especially if Cavaliers can put this up, can keep this up. But yeah, it's it's impressive. It's impressive. These are not, and Darius Garland as well. Having Darius Garland, that second player to handle the ball, he can generate some offense for himself as well. You have 20-point scorers in Darius Garland, in Evan Mobley is averaging 18. We know what Donovan Mitchell can do. You have good role players that'll defensively put in the work, like Isaac Okoro, Jared Allen, which there was some drama around Jared Allen. They've been able, in the offseason, they've been able to quiet that down. But Jared Allen, Isaac Okoro, who's the other player missing? Evan Mobley. You got good role players that'll do the defensive part of the game as well. So yeah, and then you have some players that can come off the bench that can give you a bucket, like Karis LeVert. So this team doesn't have that many holes. They don't have that many holes. Now the one thing is, next to, in the NBA right now, you do need that second superstar to be like a legitimate championship contender. And if you don't have that second through and through superstar, you need somebody like a Jamal Murray that can rise up to become a superstar in those big playoff moments. Besides Donovan Mitchell, I don't see that. I don't see that from Darius Garland. I don't see that from Evan Mobley. Can they make a trade potentially? Will one of these guys develop into being a second superstar that can be next to Donovan Mitchell, that can help carry the load in the playoff games? Because superstars win you playoff games. Superstars win you championships in this era in the NBA. That is the one thing I would be concerned about the Cleveland Cavaliers. But overall, as a unit, there is no holes in this team, and Kenny Atkinson is extremely good coach, and he deserves a lot of credit, and he has a very, very good chance in winning that Coach of the Year this season, I'll tell you that. Show break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss the Chicago Bears firing offensive coordinator Shane Waldron.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed the Cleveland Cavaliers' historic 12-0 start to their season. We move on to discuss the Chicago Bears. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is a very interesting move by the Chicago Bears. Well, no, it's not that interesting. I like using the word interesting all the time, but they got rid of one of the most useless figures in the NBA, in the NFL, and that is the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears. I mean, when you see the Chicago Bears offense, the simplicity of it, how it has no nuances to it to help a rookie quarterback. It literally looks like a Madden playbook. I mean, literally, you have Caleb Williams, who is a rookie quarterback. You want to make things easy for him. Let's make this easy for him. Let's go shotgun. Let's go shotgun 80% of the time, and let's force Caleb Williams to read a defense, to go through read 1, read 2, read 3, throw the ball 40 times a game, and let's see what he can give us. And then you get surprised when you score 9 points against Arizona. You score 15 points against the Commanders. You score 3 points against the Patriots. You score 16 points against the Colts, 13 points against the Texans. Then it surprises you then, does it? He's a terrible offensive coordinator, and Eberflus, it just seems like he's a dead man walking at this point, because last year they didn't fire him, but it was very important that he brought an offensive coordinator that could improve this team offensively. He has not got it done. Yes, the defense has been playing good ball this season. They're now in one of the upper echelons of defenses in the NFL, but you have a rookie quarterback, and if you are a coach in the league, especially if you are a inexperienced coach who's trying to make it into the NFL, and you have a rookie quarterback, you will be judged by the end of the day in the development of your rookie quarterback. And when you compare how Caleb Williams looks to how Jaden Daniel looks, how Drake May looks, how Bo Nix looks, he is way off it. He makes the same mistakes that he makes at USC over and over again. And you see that in this season. He looks like a quarterback that needs help, that needs better coaching. It's just so obvious. It's hidden in plain sight. And he has that haywire gene to him, in which, the thing is, one of Caleb Williams' greatest strengths is the ability to make a play off schedule, to make a ball on the run. Why do you just go shotgun? Put him under the center, play action, roll out, move the pocket. Why don't you allow him to throw the ball on the run? Design plays where you throw the ball on the run. Don't design a play where he drops back and he can't find nobody open because he doesn't know how to read the defense, and he's just scrambling back and forth, launching a 50-50 ball that leads to absolutely nothing. That's not what I'm talking about when I say schedule, get him on the run. Design some bootlegs, design some naked bootlegs. Make things easy for him. Where are the screens? Where are the plays? Just something simple. Just some simple plays that forces him to make a simple high school level throw that can get the offense going, that can get the rhythm going early in the game. From the beginning of the game, you're asking Caleb Williams to go in shotgun and read a defense. It's just set up for failure. He is set up for failure. And I see Deion Sanders discussing, when he was talking about Shedeur Sanders and whether or not he was going to step in, if the wrong team drafts him. Now I understand why. At first I thought that's a ridiculous thing to say. You have no right. This is the National Football League. You get drafted to where where you go. But let's say I have a son who's an NFL quarterback. Would I really want him drafted to the Chicago Bears after and it's the same thing over and over again. It's the same thing over and over again with the Chicago Bears. The same thing over and over again. They ruined Mitchell Trubisky. They ruined Justin Fields. They ruining Caleb Williams. And they haven't had a franchise quarterback since Jay Cutler, kind of. Even that was kind of, in my opinion. Yeah, look, they can fire Shane Waldron, but at the end of the day, and yes, his offense was terrible, but at the end of the day, there's an organizational issue with Chicago Bears. The common denominator here is not Shane Waldron. The common denominator with all these quarterback issues that Chicago Bears have is not Shane Waldron, it's not Matt Eberflus, it's the Chicago Bears organization not knowing how to develop a quarterback, not putting the right guys around the quarterback on a consistent basis and look, the team overall is solid. You look at the team, you bring in a DeAndre Swift in, you have that's a solid run, that should be a solid run game. You have Keenan Allen, Romeo Odunze, DJ Moore, who looks so off it, and questions of his effort with walking off the field and all that. You have the weapons there. In terms of the skill players on offense, the offensive line is not terrible, I have to say. Yes, Caleb Williams, half the time he's running around for his life, but that's after a few seconds of decent blocking, and then a pocket will eventually always collapse. The offensive line cannot block for a million years, and yeah, I don't know, and I have to say too, there's an element with this Bears team that's their season really collapsed. That Hail Mary, oh my goodness, that Hail Mary, they entered that game on a 4-2 record. They go in, they beat the Commanders that game. That Hail Mary doesn't happen. They're able to swat that ball down. They're 5-2. I think that completely changes the momentum. That Hail Mary completely changed the momentum. Losing the game, losing that kind of game on that play, the way that they did, they would have been 5-2. They won the game. Suddenly they're 4-3. Then then they go on to string another 2 losses against the Cardinals and Patriots. Now they're 4-5, and you're thinking, yeah, season's a wraps. Because you look at their schedule now. Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit in the Thanksgiving game, San Francisco, Minnesota, Detroit, Seattle, Green Bay. I mean, wow. 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 If they didn't have Caleb Williams, Chicago could probably be in a position where they're looking for a quarterback again, which they're not going to be looking for because they have Caleb Williams. But I'm just saying that's how many losses I could see them picking up because, wow. And that was a team that entered that Commanders game 4-2, and they were a Hail Mary away from potentially being 5-2. They were a Hail Mary away from potentially being 5-2, just swatting down a Hail Mary. And those are the kind of plays that can completely change the momentum of the season, and it looks like that's exactly what happened. And just a terrible situation for Caleb Williams, who doesn't help himself too. There was some moments before the draft that bothered me, short break here coming up. When we come back, we will discuss Brian Flores getting an opportunity to be an NFL, whether or not he will get an opportunity to be an NFL head coach again. Before the break, we discussed the Chicago Bears firing offensive coordinator Shane Waldron. We move on to discuss Brian Flores and whether or not he can get an opportunity to be an NFL head coach. Again, he was on the Adam Schefter podcast actually, and he talked about potentially seeking that opportunity to be a head coach again. And obviously with Brian Flores, there's some controversy that surrounds him. He happens to be, over the last few years now, a little bit of a controversial figures because of the lawsuits against the league with the head coaching, the discrimination lawsuit he had with the league a few seasons ago, and then now early on this year was Tua and his comments that he had on the coaching of Brian Flores, essentially calling him a terrible person and someone who shattered his confidence, but what Brian Flores has been able to do this season is be the coordinator of one of the best units in football in that Minnesota Vikings defense. They have been absolutely elite as a unit this season defensively. I believe they are in terms of points per game. They are what was it? I need to pull it up. They allow I had the statistics pulled up, but wait. They allow 17.4 points a game. They've only allowed 2,798 yards of total offense this season, which is about 310 yards a game, but 17 points per game. They've been very, very solid unit defensively this season in total defense, and their defense has really rised up this season against good teams. Here now I found the ranking. They're third in terms of points per game allowed, only behind the Steelers and the Chargers, who have been absolutely elite on that side of the ball this season. They are such a great unit. Minnesota's defense is, and he's had very, very good games against brilliant offensive coordinators and been able to shut down what they've been trying to do. I remember what he did to the Kyle Shanahan 49ers, what he did to Jordan Love and the Packers earlier on this season, what he did to CJ Stroud and the Texans. And then now these last two games, he has completely eaten up Joe Flacco and Mac Jones. Look, Brian Flores is a really, really good coach. Even you go back to those Miami days, he did a very, very good coaching job with that team. I think he got the best out of that team. He narrowly missed the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, but they were, when he took over that team, it was the worst team in football, most dysfunctional mess. And you remember that first season, that team was losing 50-0 on a consistent basis for the first couple of weeks. But he was able throughout that season to turn around, and he won 6 games with one of the worst rosters in NFL history. I have to say that Miami Dolphins team was absolutely horrendous. That following season, they're in a position to get Tua. They end up making a late season run. They couldn't get into the playoffs. Similar thing the following year, after starting off really, really poorly, they're able to make that late push. They narrowly miss out to the playoffs yet again. And then suddenly, the Miami Dolphins ownership group decides to part ways. Then it leads to the lawsuits coming up with all the things. I don't want to go too much in depth on that, but it's out there. The Bill Belichick text messages, all that. I would assume you generally know the details, but he has been a little bit of a war with the NFL. And then now this season, the big thing this season before, or not the big thing, but the more recent thing this season before the season, Tua Tagovailoa's comments on Brian Flores, essentially nailing down the coffin on his chances to be an NFL head coach with what he said after labeling him as a terrible person and how he shattered his confidence and all that. With how, here's the thing, a lot of former Patriots coaches who coached under Bill Belichick, they want to instill that Patriots culture that, they get it to other organizations and they see that they're way off it, and they try to instill that Patriots culture in there where you have to you have to steadily do it. It comes with the results that you can install that sort of no-nonsense culture, because if you're not getting the Super Bowls but you're still, working them extremely hard, if you're still heavily criticizing them, they're gonna lose that, respect and adulation over, that they should have over a higher authority like a head coach, because the results are not there and we're getting treated like garbage. Bill Belichick, he was able to get away with that, number one, in the fact that nobody was above the law. Even Tom Brady would get absolutely ridiculed and dog-walked and all that. We saw Chad Johnson, he said his first team meeting, Bill Belichick was tearing apart Tom Brady in a film session. When you're doing that to the top guy, it sets the tone. And what happened, but that was a team in Patriots that have already won a few Super Bowls still, so they had that culture already instilled. You have to install a winning culture before you implement that Patriots way. And I think Josh McDaniels has struggled with it. Matt Patricia, we know what Darius Slay after. A lot of these guys what, a lot of these former Patriots head coaches that go on to become coaches, they have players that come out after that coach's tenure and they completely berate them. We saw what Darius Slay had said about Matt Patricia after he, I think it was after Darius Slay eventually got traded. We see with Darius Slay, he came out with negative comments against Matt Patricia. Tua with Brian Flores. It seems like everybody that's been anywhere surrounding Josh McDaniels at the Raiders and the Broncos have nothing but negative things to say about him. You just have to find that right balance, and that I thought those two things, the combination of the NFL lawsuit and what Tua said, was potentially the death of Brian Flores as becoming a coordinator. But again, I think everything, or becoming a coach again, but I think everything heals with time. And I think what Brian Flores is doing with this team defensively, I say they're ranked number 3 in terms of points per game, but they're also ranked number 1 in NFL based on DVOA. And Brian Flores is one of the top performing coordinators in the league. There's no way denying it. I have to say, he deserves another opportunity to become a head coach, and he says he would love that opportunity to become a head coach. He said, look, there's only 32 of these jobs, so I would certainly want to be a head coach in this league again. I think he will get that opportunity because he is he's a brilliant football mind, and he has been able to have successful seasons as a head coach. But it will be difficult for him. There's no doubt about that. It will be difficult for him. Thank you guys for tuning into the GSMC Dead Ball Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. Your support means a lot to us. So please remember to subscribe to the show. Leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. Thank you once again and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow.